Hello and welcome to this video on tables and frequency tables. It's part of the Functional Skills Maths course at levels 1 and 2. Our learning outcomes are to extract information from lists and tables, diagrams and charts, and create frequency tables. Our linked learning could be linked back to our mileage charts, where we learnt to read tables to calculate distances between towns. So this was our first instance of a table. In the previous video, we talked about the data cycle, and we talked about how a question starts our data cycle off. And what we're looking at is this section here, where we collect the data and start organizing it. Tables retain information, and sometimes the information might not collect an awful lot of information. For example, if you were buying a new telly and you were comparing two tellies, there would be television A and television B, and there are certain things that we want the television to do. So we have the size of the screen, whether it's high definition, the color, and the price. And depending on these things would depend on whether we bought that particular telly. But setting up this table, we have two terminologies we need to understand. We have rows that go across, and we have columns that go up and down. So rows and columns will be standard terminology as we go through our tables. Sometimes when you're entering information that you've collected, you might want to put the information straight into a table. So here, to show you how to design a table, we have Laura, who's organizing a dinner party for 8 guests. Some of her guests have special diets. The special diets are gluten-free and nut allergies. The original question was asking us to design a table to show how each guest's diet and the total number of guests that we have for each type of diet. Some guests do not like to have a special diet, so we need to show this as well. When you go to design a table, the important thing is that we list our guests. So our guests are our columns going up and down. So this is our guest number 1, guest number 2 information. And then the 3 choices are either whether you're gluten-free, you have a nut allergy, or you have no special dietary requests. So that information goes across the way. So when people complete the information, so let's just say our blank table is our questionnaire, then you go to guest number 1, and your guest number 1 says, "Oh, I think I've got a nut allergy, so I'd better not have that. So I want the nut allergy free meal." Guest number 2 could choose gluten-free. Guest number 3 could be normal. And then as you go through the guests and you collect the information on the guests, at the end of each row, you could count up the number. So 4 people are having a gluten-free meal, 2 are having a nut allergy meal, and 3 are having a normal meal. And these are our totals. So when you're creating a table, try and think about what your columns are going to be and what your rows are going to be. Generally, when they give you various choices, these should be your rows, and then the thing you're collecting the information on are your columns. So here's an example that you can have a go at. Terry is an electrician. He needs to place an order with his supplier. They want us to design a table that Terry could use to record the details of the order. The table should have space to record what items he's ordering, the number of each item he's ordering, the price of each item, and the total cost. So these would be things that you could place in your columns, with the items themselves being the rows. So when we think about this, we have the first column, which is our items. So it could be a screwdriver, then a drill, and so on. The number of items, the price per items. So what the item is our first column. The second column is the number of each item. So how many of each item we're going to buy, the price per item, and then multiply the number of items by the price to get your total cost for each item. And then the total cost of the whole order would be in this final box here. So try and underline the things they want in the table and create the columns for the things that they want. You could do it the same way if you had rows and then different columns for each of the items. There's no difference between the two ways. You won't get marked down in the exam. We've already seen data logging and tables. Well, sometimes in the exam, you can be given a load of information and you may have to reorder a table based on a different category. So here, the default was when our data came in to sort it by age. They might ask you to sort the table by ascending order of height. So this is checking, one, that you know what the word ascending means, and two, that you can order various numbers. Now, they might not be as easy as these numbers here. They could be big numbers like the size of a mortgage, for example. Now, one of the most popular ways to collect information and display it at the same time is a tally. So on our data cycle, when we go to collect our data, we can sometimes create a tally which gives us a running total of what's going on as we collect the information. So on our tally, we have to remember that when we get sets of 5, we create this display here. So 4 vertical bars and then a diagonal bar across, which is called a 5-bar gate. And this allows us to add things up really quickly when we've got the rest of our data. Now, quite a popular thing is to give you a semi-populated tally with a few more bits of information to complete. So let's complete our tally by putting this data into our tally. So buttery spread has another value here. And we can cross that one out. Buttery churn adds another one to here. Country butter adds one to here. Almost like butter gives us our 5 bars. Now, the 5-bar gates make it easy to add them up. Now, this column at the end, you would think would be called the total, but no. In functional skills maths, we have a posh word for it, and it's called the frequency. So the frequency is a posh word for the total. So here we have 5, here we have 5 and the 1, which gives us our 6. We have 2, we have 12, and we had 5. So our frequencies, 5 people liked almost like butter, 6 people liked country butter, 2 liked golden butter, 12 liked buttery spread, and finally 5 liked the butter churn. And this is called a frequency table. It sounds really posh, but all it is the totals for whatever it is we're having a look at over here. So here's a frequency table that's already been done for us. So we've added the tally up, or we've counted the number of people that like particular types of TV program. So what a frequency tells us is that 8 people like comedy, 2 people like soap opera, 11 like sport, 7 like drama, and 1 likes light entertainment. Now from here, what we will do on the next stage of our data cycle is we can plot this information as a graph or a bar chart or any type of information we want to make a better visual display than a frequency table. So a frequency table just gives us our numbers. These things here give us a nicer visual representation, which we'll come on to in the next video. Now, sometimes when you're collecting the data and creating your tally, it's probably better to group the things that you're trying to collect. So here we've got some marks in a test out of 40. And don't worry, they're not the results for your skills tests. Now, sometimes, rather than listing all of the data just to make sure we have it covered, in other words, on our data collection sheet, we could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, down to 20. And then when you go and look at your information, you find one person had 10, one person had 9, another person had 12, another had 18, another had 16, another had another 18, and so on. What you can do is group the information as you collect it. So instead of having individual scores, you can say that 2 people got the score between 0 and 10. And then you could group the next group and say that 6 people had information between 11 and 20. So instead of having one number for each of our scores, we group our scores. And don't forget what we said earlier, you make sure you don't overlap the scores. If this was 10 and this was 10 and somebody scored 10, you'd be stuck on where to put it. So make sure the groups don't overlap. Now, there are pros and cons on grouping data. When you group data, it saves a lot of space in how we collect our information, and it's a lot easier to look at rather than having the numbers 0 down to 40 and individual scores against them. However, what you lose is accuracy. So if you said to me, oh, what did the 5 people get between 21 and 30? I have no idea. So you lose a lot of the accuracy you have on the individual scores. So it's a bit of a trade-off. This looks better and is a lot easier to collect. This one means that the con is that you lose a lot of your accuracy for those individual scores. And that completes the learning outcomes to extract information from lists and tables, from diagrams and charts, and then to create frequency tables. The buzzwords were frequency, which is a posh maths word for a total. A frequency table is where our last column is a count of the things that we're doing our survey on and collecting information on. And grouped frequency is where, instead of listing every single number, we can group the information we're collecting to have a much shorter list of information. And that completes this YouTube video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask your tutor. We hope you've enjoyed this video.